Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Super Subs Podcast. Your host, Harish and Narv, again. This is a little earlier of an episode that will be dropping since midweek will be quite busy, so uh, won't be able to record. So we wanted to just kind of touch on some of the games that we were able to catch this weekend um, across the top leagues. Um, Maybe what games to look forward to. I guess the upcoming weekend will be international break, so but maybe we can try to point out some games to keep an eye on. And then before we get started with the super sub of the week, everyone wish Narvin good luck this coming weekend. He has his third, third
hmm
bodybuilding show. He'll be competing out in Wilmington, North Carolina. The progress he's making, I think, dude, could win it all.
Sure, hope so. That'd be huge.
Talk to the viewers about or listeners about what your you think your day is gonna be of that body. I know this is not a bodybuilding podcast, but
Uh-huh.
the day of the bodybuilding show. What time do you
What's
wake
it?
up? Prep? I mean, probably like a pro soccer player, they got their
Yeah.
rituals. What's your ritual?
I think probably wake up, get a quick straight up just carbs to kind of fill up that day. And I think I have like a tanning appointment at like 6:30 in the morning. So I'll have to be up kind of early. And then yeah, after that tanning, touch up, kind of get to the venue, get my mind right, and then the show starts at 10, so probably around like 9, uh, between 9 to when I step on stage, just back there, warming up, little warm up,
Hmm.
and snacking on some food, and then hopefully get place well on the show, get some collectibles, and then afterwards, just looking for that feast.
So what do you eat right beforehand when you get on the stage?
Usually something actually kind of sweeter. So usually like rice cakes, like a caramel rice cake, or if I get the plain one, a little bit with like honey, add some peanut butter on there, and then a lot of salt. Um,
Gotcha. And I'm curious, like you said the show's at 10. I think your past shows were kind of earlier in the afternoon too,
hmm
or morning. Uh, and I mean, since you're working kind of throughout the day and you're typically working out in the evening, like does
hmm
that play a big factor for you?
Uh, Typically not, just because the way we just manipulate the food and all, like leading up to the show, is kind of different. Um, So it doesn't really have that much an effect. Plus, I'll usually leading up to the show, you kind of manipulate like your water and all that as well. So that plays a role.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that
Well,
that first like sip of water after the show too is it's like heaven.
great. Well, unfortunately, I won't be there this weekend, but good luck to you. I'll be streaming it online, so supporting that way.
Right.
But everyone else, yeah, wish Narvin good luck. And enjoy that post show lunch. But back to our regular scheduled program with some soccer talk. We'll start with our super sub of this weekend. Um, so I'll let you go first here, Narv.
You sure? I had the last week's. I'll let you go first because I feel like there's maybe an obvious one.
Yeah, for me, I was traveling and stuff this week and just hanging out with family, so I didn't get to catch a lot of these games. So my super sub, I think the obvious one is from probably today. Fernan Torres coming on for Barca. Um, Barca were down 2-0, and then Fernan Torres came on um, around, I think, with like 30 minutes left in the game, and then he ultimately scored that second goal that equalized for Barca, and then he scored the last goal to kind of end the game, um, 4-2. But yeah, I thought Danny Olmo he's looked good starting with Barca, but Fernan Torres definitely added another element, and I think it just helped Barca's dynamic where it seemed like Rafinha was kind of going. Fernan Torres kind of played as a forward, but also kind of out wide to the left, and it was able to push like Rafinha towards the middle. So it kind of changed that whole dynamic for Barca.
Yeah, and I'm sure um, we're covering a few Premier League games, but we're also covering some other games that happen around the league. So we'll dive more into his performance as this episode goes on. Um, yeah, there weren't that many super subs, but for me, I would say my super sub would be also from today's game in the United game. Um, would be the youngster Toby Collier. Uh, Unfortunately, Aiden Heaven, who's looked good since making his debut, unfortunately had a pretty nasty injury, stretchered off. They didn't even show the replay of the injury, so because they said it was pretty bad. So Toby Collier had to come on, played center back, or sorry, played the wing back role, did really well, and then switched over to the midfield role, and kind of it was nothing special, but just really getting the job done, and the defensive role that he's really not used to.
Yeah, it's like a natural what like midfielder, right?
Hmm.
It was pretty impressive, and I mean when he came on, it was a close game still. Like yeah, the final score you guys dominate, but like coming into a game where it's 1-0, that's a lot of pressure.
Away from home too. Yeah.
Mhm. Um, but yeah, let's dig into some of the games. We'll start with Saturday's games. And Narv, I'm sure you caught a lot of these games, so feel free
Mhm.
to talk about some of the other ones. But the ones I wanted to focus on is I think the big one in the Premier League was Man City versus Brighton. Ended up being 2-2. Do you think this was a fair point for both teams, or do you think one team deserved it more than the other?
I think honestly, Brighton should have pulled away with the win.
Hmm.
Um, that first goal was that got disallowed was a bit soft.
The Matoma header.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was my one of my questions I had was, do you think that was a foul?
I don't think so. Um, yeah, Ortega got away with it, I feel like. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think Matoma didn't really touch him at all. And it's not like the ball was securely like in like Ortega just caught it. It was like bang bang type play. And it's not
Hmm.
like Matoma hit Ortega's arm or body or anything. So yeah, I thought Brighton was very unlucky there. But to your point, I do think Brighton deserved to win. But it's also partly on them for not coming away with all 3 points because they blew some really good chances. And some of the ones I noted down were, I think, yeah, so the Matoma goal and then Minta, where he had an easy tap in and just kind of went. I don't know if he was dummying it on purpose, like he thought someone was behind him, but
Hmm.
that was it just went straight through his legs. And then I think the big one, Carlos Baliba,
Oh yeah. I
just
felt bad. I really hoped he finished off that move because he made a run like almost from the top of his own box all
mhm.
the way. Um, he came out of nowhere, so I was like, man, he should reward himself with a goal, and he's tapping.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he like panicked or it was exhaustion or a combination.
I think a little bit of exhaustion. He ran,
Yeah.
yeah, covered so much ground. I will say the one person on Brighton, um, who's been playing well since coming up from the championship, Jorginho Ruter. I thought he had
Hmm.
a somewhat of a poor game, and the goals Brighton conceded were definitely avoidable, but they came from loose balls that were just cheaply given away that led to the PK, and then the other one, another turnover uh, that led to Marmoush's goal that was well taken, but both came from Ruter, I think, getting just a
Hmm.
bit easily dispossessed.
Oh yeah, it did. And then on the flip side, like he also created like the free kick was because of him getting fouled. So he just definitely needs to learn when to release the ball sooner. But even the one he was fouled, like, he could have probably passed it earlier, but he ended up
Mhm.
getting dragged down. But that's a good point because that's just a lot of like pretty good players. Like they're so confident in their skills, but then just like being smart about it too, like when to take those risks.
Yeah. But that was a Estupion's goal. That was the commentators were like, Ortega could have done better. But I was like, nah, that was well taken.
Hmm. And then on the flip side with City, I think two players that f for me are easy standouts is Marmoush was the best player for them, but
Mhm.
uh and he's been I mean, in Bundesliga we both thought that he was gonna be good when he came in, but not really to this level just because at least me, I was a little suspect with Bundesliga players coming over, but he looks like the real deal. And I'm happy because he's so fun to watch, but Doku is also someone we've talked about that's been a bright spot for City. I think those were the two obvious ones, but other than that, like, did anyone else impress you, or has it been kind of the same poor Man City performances?
I think kind of the same poor performances. And I don't know, did Bernardo Silva he gets subbed off for injury? Because he it looked a bit confusing, like he was upset when he got subbed off. Because literally like 15 minutes after coming on, he got subbed out for Foden.
Yeah, he did get injured. Um, I'm not sure like the extent to his injury or what exactly happened, but yeah, it was an injury.
Gotcha. Yeah, I thought Holland was pretty decent too, linking up play up there. It definitely helps when Marmoush is playing right behind him. Um,
Hmm.
linking up better when Marmoush is on there. But yeah, to your point, um, I think those are the only three. And then Savino, again, I think there's a player in there just needs to work on his final product. He had like I think two chances where could have put it anywhere. Made it a little tougher for the keeper, but put it right down the middle. But there's a player in there in Savino. It's just
Hmm.
the final product. Um, once it gets there, he'll be a key player.
Yeah, he definitely had a couple chances, like you mentioned today. And then another pretty young player is Kusanov in the back. I know he got like the own goal, which is a little unfortunate today. But I'm not gonna lie, he's one player that I'm unfortunately kind of excited for to see grow because he had that stinker against Chelsea, but ever since then, I think he's been one player that's really has put in some decent performances, and even with like some of the top guys like uh Vinny, he looked pretty comfortable and was defending really well. And even today, like João Pedro is a pretty big dude, and like him going body to body with João Pedro was impressive.
Yeah, I know at FC Lens, like he got the nickname from the fans. Like his nickname was the Uzbekistan mind reader.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's one part of his game. Like he's pretty good at reading the game. Um, but yeah, that own goal was kind of unlucky. Uh, I will say another player on Brighton who impressed me was who I wasn't really convinced at first, just because it's a step up MLS to Premier League, but Diego Gomez, I thought he had a really good
Hmm.
game. Um, he's impressing me every time he plays.
Yeah, he's always kind of on my short list for super subs. He gets the job done.
Hmm.
But it was cool to see him get rewarded with the start. So now, just a couple quick facts that I saw after the game was Erling Haaland now is the fastest player to reach 100 goal contributions in the Premier League. Um, and an interesting one worrying for City is they've dropped 9 points this year from winning positions, and they haven't dropped that many points since 08, 09 season. And then the last one, I think, just looking forward, City are in fifth and probably that last Champions League spot with 48 points. Brighton right behind them with 47 points. So this was a huge game for Champions League
Mhm.
uh, considerations. And City, fortunately for them, they do have uh, their nine remaining games are all against the bottom half of the table. They do have the Manchester Derby. That one might, I think, just the way you guys have been playing, we can touch on it later. I think it's going to be a road bump for them, but should be all winnable games. So, do you think from now, do you think like City is the one that's going to get that fifth spot, or do you think Brighton can?
Um, I don't I don't think either. I think it's gonna be Newcastle um that will get a Champions League spot. Um,
Do
because
you think
they're
Do you think Chelsea finishes top four or top five?
I gotta look at your guys' schedule, who you guys have left.
Hmm.
You guys really just have you guys have Newcastle, Liverpool, and Forest as like the toughest ones left.
We still have y'all too.
I think I think Brighton could slide in actually on that fifth. I think you guys could slide off um to like maybe the sixth spot.
Yeah, and I'm a little worried right now with Cole Palmer's injury. Not sure how long he's going to be out,
Mhm.
um, but we looked quite poor without him. So I think we can move on to the Chelsea game maybe um, now if you want, but maybe other Saturday. That was the only game I was able to catch for Saturday.
Mhm.
But before we move on, were there any other Premier League games or games across some other leagues that you wanted to touch on?
Just a quick point. Shout out
Hmm.
to Forest and Anthony Elonga. I think Nottingham Forest, we've said it before, but they might be the most um, devastating team on the counterattack. Literally, three of them came from counters. It's like literally just two passes from back to front, and they're in. Um,
Yeah, and it's an interesting fact. Like Ipswich had almost 60% of possession.
exactly, yeah. Um, Brentford Bournemouth was a really disappointing game. I was pretty excited for this one, but uh, Bournemouth should have won. They kind of missed a lot of opportunities again, but Brentford they didn't look their best, but
Mhm.
they managed to pull a win. So that kind of kills Bournemouth, or there's a little damage to Bournemouth's hope. And then just another big game in terms of like relegation. Wolves pulling out a win versus Southampton. So that gives them a bit more distance between the relegation zone.
Yeah, some big goals it looks like by Strand Larson.
Yeah, while Cunha's gone. Yeah.
And then were you able to catch the Everton game?
I did see the win. I just saw the winner. Crowd
Okay.
was going nuts.
Um, and then anything else across I was keeping my eye on the notifications for Real Madrid. Looks like they kind of squeaked past Villarreal.
Yeah, it looks like Villarreal got an early lead, but um, Real Madrid came from behind.
And I was watching some of so there's a YouTuber Faisal that we love. Super entertaining, huge Real Madrid fan, but I was watching I haven't finished his video, but he was breaking down the game and he said they deserved to lose that game and was worried about the title race.
Oh wow. Yeah, I didn't really get to catch that game. Um,
And then anything across Syria A that
uh,
you're able to watch?
I caught the Milan Como game.
Oh, I know you were hyped for that one.
Yeah, Como, they continue to impress me. I think honestly they could have pulled away with a win, but shout out to the American Christian Pulisic, who I think's been Milan's like best player in terms of output.
Hmm.
Again on the score sheet again. Uh, and then just from the English Championship, your boy Frank Lampard, he's done quite a great job with Coventry, getting a huge win, 3-0 over Sunderland. Um, Coventry, they've went from possible relegation to like a playoff spot since his appointment.
And then another clean sheet for James Trafford over there at Burnley.
Hmm.
Too bad they've let one goal in. Uh,
Yeah.
but but yeah, we can move on to the Chelsea versus Arsenal game. Yeah, so I think today's summary of the game was similar to last week where Arsenal United on the whenever you see that on the fixture list, it's mouth watering. Same thing with this, and then just complete opposite. Um, so I'm sorry for fans, neutrals who had to endure that with no stake. Um, I think without Cole Palmer, you can see how much of a miss he is
What
creatively.
injury did he have?
I'm not sure. Again, I didn't have much time to like look into
Because
a lot of like
I
our.
didn't see like reports or anything either. It was like literally until I checked the lineup when I saw he was missing, I was like, huh.
Yeah, I know Conference League he was subbed out and he was not limping, but he did seem to have a little niggle.
Hmm.
Um, so not sure if probably picked up something from that. But I didn't get to listen to the pre or post conference interviews, but hopefully it's nothing serious. You could definitely see the impact he had, but even like having Fafana out and right back, like he's for a center back, he's a really good ball carrier. Um, really impressive, but the right back dynamic, like you need someone like Reece James Gusto, and that was an issue not having to play Fofana out there. Badiashile was horrendous. Nkunku and Sancho were also just horrendous out in the wings. So overall, just disappointed. And I don't
Hey,
know,
at least
Maresca's kind of.
sorry to take away from the game, but I was very, very devastated when I saw the Chelsea signing on Friday. I thought he was
Yep.
coming to
That's
United.
uh
I thought that
that's the
was
only bright side we have from the week.
you guys are
Um,
getting a real baller,
and
man.
for listeners, we're talking about Giovanni Quenda. We talked about him just off the pod, but 17-year-old from Sporting. He's very got a bright future, and Narvin has been tracking him for a while. And United fans, I think, were starting to get whispers that he'd be coming over, but we secured him.
Blitz. That's the thing I love about Chelsea's board is like y'all never have rumors to any links. Y'all just get the job done. Whereas we kind of mess around and about, just keep dragging it on,
Hmm.
um, can never secure it, and then we end up paying like ridiculous amount, overpay because it's last minute. Whereas you guys just get in there, get it done.
And then we signed another fullback too right after from Sporting. Um, I forget his name, but I don't really remember him too much, him sticking out.
Hmm.
But I am really excited about Giovanni.
Hmm.
Um, so sucks for y'all. I know a lot of United fans were disappointed. Um, but yeah, just going back to the game, I'll touch on mostly Chelsea, and you can. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Arsenal. But so Palmer has an impact, and Jackson's definitely had an impact on us going forward. But I am a little worried about Maresca if he's like an actual legit man. Like I don't know. I'm a little worried because in post game interviews, he's talked about how you play long balls and stuff, you're gonna be taking out the game, like taking risks. But that's just like sometimes you have to. Like you can't just play backwards and sideways like he wants. And even when we were down 1-0, like the way we were playing, it looked like we were trying to defend a lead. It made no sense. Um, And then also like his subs, like I know we don't have much on our bench, like it's pretty thin, but we have Lavia back now, and he added a spark to the game, and Tyreek George too. This was one of the games where he's actually looked pretty impressive. Conference League is a little different with like the level of competition, but in the Premier League, this was definitely his best game. But again, they didn't come on until 10, 15 minutes left. Um, and managers, I like what like Slot does, and some of the better managers that are when they see an issue, they make changes pretty quick, especially this type of game where Arsenal weren't too threatening. Why not make a change and see if someone can make an impact? So I'm a little worried about Maresca's,
I thought Maresca was kind of like that though at the start of this year, where he
yeah,
seemed
start of
very
the year.
cutthroat.
So I'm just not sure what's going on. He also just doesn't sound as confident in post conference like interviews. He kind of goes back and forth with his words. So um, yeah, it's just a little disappointing of us few months now for us, and this game just added to it.
I will say, I know you kind of, um, he is a great player, but been out with injuries before, but coming back in, um, kind of gonna experiment Reece James in that midfield. I don't think he looks that great, I'll be honest. I know he
Yeah,
could play there
he
in
looked
the
off.
championship, but um, I don't think
Yeah,
he looked good playing there.
he did look quite off today, playing that defensive mid position. But um, I mean, against Leicester, I thought when he came in, uh, or not Leicester, was it Copenhagen? I think midweek. Again, it's a different level, but he did look kind of comfortable
Mhm.
operating there. So I think today was just kind of a one-off, but he did have a pretty poor game.
Gotcha.
And attacking wise, it's sad when Cucurella's like been our best attacking threat the past 2 weeks in the Premier League.
Got almost close to again another goal. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
goofy.
And then
Um,
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on like, do you think Arsenal deserved the win, or what impressed you about Arsenal,
yeah,
if anything?
I thought Arsenal deserved the win. I think that first half was pretty much all Arsenal. Um, well, I think this game was actually Arsenal deserved the win, but I think they deserved the win not because they necessarily played well. It's just you guys played really bad, if that makes sense. Uh,
Hmm.
like if Arsenal put up this type of performance versus like any other team, like they wouldn't get a win, but you guys just played so bad that they deserved to win, with how they played. Um, I think Martinelli had a good game. Um, he was kind of a threat out there in the wing. And again, Rice, very good game. Uh, and also Timber, I thought played really well. Those were the three
Hmm.
players that kind of stood out. Uh, and then I thought Fofana got a little lucky. I thought he could have got sent off for that. It looked like he was going for the ball, but then at the same time, it was like pretty reckless stamp on Declan
On
Rice.
Rice, yeah, he definitely looked. It was like a frustration foul, I think.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, Arsenal, they just somehow got it done without a striker. And I think like it was the only way they were going to get it done is through a set piece.
Yeah. Mr. Lightskin had a few good like reaction saves.
He also had a few blunders.
Yeah, he almost gifted Arsenal that like 10 minutes into the game.
Yeah, Mourinho though that was a pretty nice header. That was very for a
I don't
midfielder.
think he meant it. Or
No?
I think he was trying to flick it more than actually go for
Uh,
the goal.
I was really impressed. But I could see like I'll have to take a closer look to see if there was some luck in there.
Hey, Arsenal finally get their set piece goal. I feel like they haven't scored off a set piece in a minute.
Yeah, for real. Um, and maybe. This is a start to their comeback for the league title.
Oh, heck no.
12 points behind. I mean, we can move on to that game next. Liverpool. They took the L again. It's been like you said, a very tough week for Liverpool fans.
Yeah, went from 4 trophies in the hopes to they got the Premier League wrapped up. Um, it will take like a catastrophe where all first 11 get injured or something.
Yeah, that has
Um,
to be the ultimate bottle job if Arsenal were to win the title now.
hmm Uh, this was, I will say, I will blame some of the blame has to go to Slot. I'd say like 60% of the blame.
Oh wow. And why is that?
He keeps rolling with Jota and Diaz when like I feel like they've been playing so poor past few weeks.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I don't know, Jota, he just hasn't looked the same since coming back from injury. And then Diaz, he's been so shaky. Uh, like he's a workhorse, like don't get me wrong, but product wise, like Salah was getting shut down, and like you can't just rely on Salah. Like I mean, he's carried Liverpool, but like you got to have some other output too. And Diaz and Jota, they've just shown you like they're not in form at the moment. Um, Even Darwin Nunez, like I would start him over Jota at the minute because like he at least causes chaos and gets you opportunities. And on that left wing, like Gapco pretty much carried Liverpool to this final, and he's back healthy, so he could have at least got like 60 minutes under his belt starting.
Hmm.
Or even Harvey Elliott, like because when Harvey Elliott and Chiesa came on, they looked a lot better in the minutes they got versus uh, Diaz and Jota the entire game.
Yeah, I was hoping Chiesa wouldn't be mentioned as a super sub for us because I was really hoping Newcastle could win this one, which they ultimately did. But Chiesa definitely looked like a big difference maker when he came on. Um, I don't know about the Gakpo thing, like with his injury. I guess Slot's trying to ease him in, but I definitely see what you're saying now with like Slot should have either made those changes earlier or just probably gone with a different starting lineup.
hmm Yeah, this whole Liverpool team just they look leggy. Because I'll admit this game was not that fun to watch for a neutral because it was so one-sided.
Yeah, I agree. Like Gravenberch, man, he's looked pretty poor
He
the
looks
past
leggy.
the
Yeah.
past month. He looks really bad. And I know jokingly I say like Liverpool, I mean that Arsenal has a chance, which I don't truly think that, but I do think it might be a little closer than it should at this time. Because Liverpool's got some grinders coming up. Uh,
12-point lead with the same
I
number of
mean,
games.
yeah, I don't think like Arsenal are gonna be like close, but like I
Do you
think
think
it
they
will
can
be
cut
a
it down to like single digits possibly?
yeah, that's what I think. I
The
think it can be
nine.
like a 6 point gap is what I think.
Oh wow.
I think Liverpool are gonna drop some more games. And it's just because I'm looking at some of the fixtures. I think Everton, that midfield is it's gonna be rough. Um, because Everton, dude, they're like their legs, like they can run for days. Like Decore and stuff, I think is gonna cause issues. Um, and then Spurs. I mean, that game can
That's just unpredictable.
that's on
If Spurs
yeah.
show out, yeah.
And I mean, it's pretty big game for Ange. Um, and then Liverpool still have Chelsea, they have Arsenal, and then depending on like how much Gravenberch and those likes are playing in these games, like they still have Brighton and Palace at the end of the season too. So, I mean, they've got some tough fixtures, and Arsenal have a lot of bottom half teams left.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like he just that Southampton game, that was one where even if you take a tie or a L, so be it. Just You got the Champions League midweek, and then this final. Like, got to give your big names a rest.
Yeah, that's a good point with especially that PSG game. You could clearly see PSG were able to rest their players for that second leg, and Liverpool weren't for some reason didn't against Southampton, and that definitely cost them against PSG.
The uh, the injury to Trent did also hinder them a bit. Just didn't have that fluid attack from the right. So having both Trent and Connor Bradley injured at the same time was definitely kind of unfortunate.
Hmm.
Especially the way that Trent got injured versus PSG. That was very unfortunate. Uh,
Yeah, and going back to your Luis Diaz point, that's someone I want to talk about where I thought he was bought for much more, but I think it was 53 million when I was looking on transfer market. So not something crazy, but I don't know. There's times where like it's the vibes I get from Liverpool fans is like they think he's like a top winger. Um, and I'm not really impressed by him at all. Like I kind of think if he were to go on to Arsenal, I don't think he would necessarily be a clear starter. So I wanted to see your thoughts. Like, do you think he's been in the Premier League now for 3 years? Like, what your thoughts are on him?
I think he could be a top winger if he just put up consistency. Because there's games where you see glimpses and you're like, wow, what a player. But then there's some where it's like
Hmm.
you don't even know he's existed in the game. But it's just the one trait he does have, which I can't take away, is that man is definitely a workhorse. But it's just in terms of actually the quality he provides going forward. He just does not do it on a consistent basis.
Hmm.
Like he was the heights for him to reach Mane has never happened, and I don't think
Hmm.
he'll ever
You don't think it will?
get to the Mane heights. No,
Yeah, El Skinny.
and I think that's what they got him for was like basically to be that Mane.
Yeah, and it's so I think it's been 3 or 4 seasons now. And like he's 28, so it's getting kind of up there. And the way he plays, like to your point, that's really true. Like consistency, because there's definitely games where like he looks like a Neymar or something. Like the
Hmm.
skills he pulls out, like he's able to get past a defender with ease. But there's games like today where he just stinks it up, and I just see those performances more, and I feel like they're more lasting in your memory.
The bad ones.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then
On the flip side, for Newcastle, I know Dan Burn. It's crazy that he like boyhood Newcastle fan, but he got the man of the match. But who do you think deserved the man of the match? Because I think there was someone else who was I think he was sticking out like a sore thumb as a man of the match.
yeah, I think real quick on Dan Burns' point though, it to your point, it was hype to see him uh win the man of the match and like also scoring like the first goal. Like you could just see
Mhm.
the emotions, like what it meant to him,
That was kind
which
of
is really
chills. I'm
cool.
not gonna lie,
Yeah, I got like hairs on my back, so
especially the backstory because like for listeners, like his whole backstory. Dan Burn, he as a child like went to Newcastle games. That was his boyhood club. He actually played for like their academy, and then he got cut from their team at like 11. So then played at Brighton, and then came back and now got them their first. This is Newcastle's first trophy since 1955. And so Dan Burn got on the score sheet to help him lift it.
it's insane. 70 years now since they've won a trophy. And I'm happy for Isak too. Like I hope they can finish top four just so they can secure Champions League and he can stay, like he'll stay at Newcastle. But yeah, some interesting things that have happened in the 70 years is since they won last time a trophy, there were no yellow or red cards. Like that thing that didn't exist. Barca, Bayern, and Liverpool had never won a Champions League. Pele was 29, Maradona was 4, and Messi and Ronaldo weren't even born yet. Obviously,
Wow.
so
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, going back to your point with who deserved man of the match, I think it should have been Isak.
Oh, really? I had
Yeah,
another
it's either
player in
him,
mind.
him or Joe Linton.
Yeah, I thought Joe Linton deserved the man of the match. That man was a animal. He covered the entire field.
Yeah, I definitely think Newcastle were missing him, like in the FA Cup game against Brighton in the midfield, and then even like in the league versus Liverpool. If Joe Linton had played, that probably would have helped.
Yeah, I think so. His gloves crazy. Going from like getting clowned on as a striker, then so, was it Eddie Howe that discovered his midfield role, or was it the
Hmm.
manager
Eddie,
before?
yeah, it was Eddie Howe.
Yeah, so that transformation, and he's up there as like one of the best midfielders I think in the Premier League.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I completely wrote him off too when he first came on and he was a strike. I was like, why is he so hyped up? And
Mhm.
like his transfer fee was pretty big too from Hoffenheim. So I was confused, but you can see his quality.
And I knew the moment where like, because I used to clown him too, like he, especially when he played the striker. But the time I realized like there's a player probably in there was when I think in the interview with like Callum Wilson, and they asked like it's like one of those like fan interviews where like fans ask you questions, and one of the questions was like on like a training session or a five-a-side, like who's the one player that you would want on your team? And he's like, oh, no doubt. Like if you have Joelinton, you'll win. Um,
Mm.
so I was like, oh. And then yeah, Eddie Howe kind of got him a role in that midfield, and ever since been top.
Yeah, that's a good shout out. And he's a workhorse like for the team.
Hmm.
But if we want to, were there
Sorry.
any other points
Also,
from Liverpool? Liverpool
another
game?
reason I thought Slot deserved 60% of the blame, maybe even more, like 70%. Um, Set pieces. Why are you putting McAllister on Dan Burn? I don't know
Yeah.
if the players decide that. I'm pretty sure the manager will set you up like that, but I'm like, yo,
You got to get Van Dyke on him.
yeah, that was a
Biggest dude.
crazy mismatch. Because Bruno G should have had a goal where Dan Burn flicked it on there, but um, yeah.
But again, Liverpool, like you mentioned in the beginning, they went from fans generally thought they were potential treble winners here to now just the
Well,
Premier League.
let me ask you this: if uh, I guess you'd still, if you're a Liverpool, um, or even a non-Liverpool fan, would you still say like this is a super successful season, or because they were in contention as like
Hmm.
minimum two trophies?
Yeah, I think if they had won multiple trophies, I think it would have looked very different from now just winning the Premier League. I don't see it as being as impressive. It's cool to see Slot win it in his first year as a manager, but um, I don't really find it too impressive, especially because they're just going to win the Premier League, and the Premier League this year has been very weak competition. Um, so it's honestly not that impressive because Premier League, you're battling the likes of Arsenal, like that's been struggling. So I don't really find it that impressive.
Hmm.
And I think this might hurt Salah for his Ballon d'Or.
Yeah, yeah. I think Salah just needs like anyone but Barca or Madrid to win Champions League. Because yeah, Champions League they put quite a bit of weight. 'Cause Salah was
Yeah,
non-existent today either.
no, I agreed. And I think you said Barca and Real Madrid, but even PSG, I would say
Dembele.
Dembele has a pretty good shout. Um, and then the bottom left, Inter, Dortmund,
Oh, even Bayern Munich, Harry Kane, I
or
think.
Munich, yeah, Kane, maybe. So I think Salah, if Liverpool had won multiple trophies, or even went further in the Champions League, he would easily be. But I think it definitely makes it a little harder now. Um, just winning Premier League and also just not really a tough league right now either. It's
Hmm.
competitive, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
Teams aren't consistent. But let's move on to uh, back to the Premier League. We'll go to Manchester getting another dub now. 3-0. Last two games now, they've three games let's talk about. Arsenal 1-1. Good result. Probably should have won. Beat Real Sociedad 4-1. Easy. And then Leicester now 3-0. So I'll let you take it away, but I think before that, real quick, we have to do a slow clap for the man.
Bruno?
Bruno. Have to slow clap for Bruno.
The day
Man,
he
I
retires, I'm gonna be in tears.
man, this guy went from still remember at when we were in university, like when we saw like the transfer rumors, we were like showing everyone clips of Bruno because like they're like, who's this Bruno guy? And we were like, "Dude, he's gonna be something." Um, but now he joins Rooney, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, Cantona, and Bex with 50 goals, Premier League goals, and 50 assists um, in Manchester history. And since he's made his debut for Manchester in the Premier League, only Salah and De Bruyne have provided more assists than him. So that's impressive company to be up with. So props to him. He's always been United's best player, workhorse, a leader, and I think just deserves more respect too because Salah, people put him as one of the best. Argue, that when he retires, could be the best Premier League player of all time. Um, De Bruyne, people speak very highly of, and it's always like De Bruyne's up here. Bruno's like maybe third tier, or like there's a huge gap. I do think
Mhm.
De Bruyne so far has had a better career, but like it's coming to an end, and Bruno has a lot more to give. So that gap is probably gonna shorten, but like it's not as wide as people really think. So I
And
think he just
Bruno
deserves more respect.
and Bruno came at it like he basically came into a United team that's like been suffering like the most in history. Like he's literally carried us this past like basically since his debut. Uh so yeah, I'll be in tears once he retires. But also from the Europa League, just wanted to touch on he got a hat trick versus Real Sociedad. And
Hmm.
so with that, Bruno Fernandes, he made history with most goal involvements in Europa League history, 24 goals and 17 assists in that competition overall. So he's another level.
Hmm.
And I said before, like I love him also just because I know he could literally walk into any team to get more trophies, but just the love he has for United is unmatched. But
Yeah,
going
two
in,
two
oh, go
assists
ahead.
and two assists and a great goal banger by him
Hmm.
today. And then real quick, I just wanted to touch on. I'll let you have your say about United, but wanted to kind of navigate some conversations here. But I think the first one is I wanted to touch on Heaven because he looked really good since making his debut versus Arsenal. Um, he started the game crazy elite tackle against Dhaka. So wanted your thoughts on how big of a loss he is, and I guess like what's the plan going forward rest of the season in Europa League without him? Assuming it looked like a very serious injury.
Yeah, because they didn't show the replay, and then when he got stretchered off, they put like a cast over his leg. Um, which is also usually a bad sign. But yeah, he's going to be a pretty big loss because Ruben, obviously, he likes one of the three in the back of the center backs to be pretty good at kind of progressing the ball, carrying, as well as being able to uh, play like line breaking balls and stuff. So initially, we had Licha, who was basically a shoe-in at that position. He got hurt with the ACL. No one thought Hayden would be good this quickly at that role, but um, a midfielder turned center back, he was like able to do what Licha did. So now with him out, Euro out, I think we have a player in the academy, Goodwill Kokonki, who I think could play that Aiden Heaven role. Um, I've seen a lot of clips of him. He's basically similar to Aiden Heaven in Licha. Maybe not as great as carrying it out. But it's either going to be that or like we saw today, Harry Moss maybe playing that wing back role and then Mazraoui coming into center back.
Yeah, do you
But
think Mazraoui can fill in as a, I know today was against Leicester, and I thought
mhm.
he did a good job, but um, do you think that is a solution for the remainder of the season? Like even not just Premier League, but Europa League, and then like, do you think maybe you're limiting then like your wing back? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, because I'm not solely, I don't know, because we will get Dorgu back soon from his red card. But yeah, we're just going to be missing like having someone that can really play that line breaking passes forward, um,
Hmm.
which is going to be a big miss. I think Lindelof can do it at times, but he's aging a bit, and I don't know if he's able to play like a bunch of games in a row. It's like fit wise, like I don't know if he has that in his bag anymore. So that'll be kind of a big loss. Like I like Mazraoui defensively, but going forward, he's not the same as Heaven.
And then on the attack, I wanted to touch on two players uh, that I think are heading in two different ways. First is Xerxes. I've been a fan of him since he came, but I think Ruben
Sauce.
Amarin has been using him a little more correctly now, and he's coming to his own. So wanted to get your thoughts on like his longer term. I think he's going to be in the squad for this year, but like, do you think he's going to be there longer term? With United? Like, do you think he's going to be in Amarin's plan, especially with the comments Amarin made about Mount, how he's going to be playing a big role?
Mhm.
So, do you think Xerxes will be still playing this type of role, like a big role on the team? And then thoughts on Garnacho? I think he's been one that had a pretty high market value. A lot of teams were interested in him, but the more I've been watching him a little more, he's I don't think he's that player where he's, as for right now, I think he's a player that's going to be an impact player, like a sixth man, you call it in basketball, where he comes off the bench and makes an impact, and definitely not ready, I think, to take on a starting role at United. So, what's your thoughts on like long-term plans for these two players?
Yeah, good question. I think Xerxes, I mean saucy. He gets at least one nutmeg a game, but he's um he's just one of those. He needs players around him to be um have more attributes because Xerxes is he's basically like what I was telling you, like a Berbatov type player, where yeah,
Hmm.
he's not the most athletically gifted, but like his touches are always so clean. But the biggest is like his intelligence, like he's so smart. Um, and I think Berbatov, his strengths were like he knew his teammates to a T, like how fast his teammates were, like what type of skills they do. So Xerxes, I think, as he gels in more and more with the team, like gets used to the surroundings, he'll just get better and better. So I think there's a long term plan for him in the inverted 10 role. Uh,
And you think he could be a week in, week out starter, even if Mount
at least a
was to find full?
rotation, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, because I think on the right inverted 10, that's gonna be Diallo's lock. Uh, and then Garnacho, I've liked him playing better past few times, past few games on the right inverted 10, because I think on the left, when he can kind of come into his right, he's a bit more selfish, tries to do it on his own. Whereas this one, he's kind of forced to play, link up with his teammates a bit more. And he looked better doing that, but I still don't think an inverted 10 is really his role. I really want to see him used out as a wingback. I think if we get him to do the dirty work defensively, like I think he honestly has a good shout at that wingback role.
Mm.
Um, because I think Diallo, when he's back, he's a lock in for a inverted 10.
Yeah, and Garnacho too, he's a high volume player. At times his quality just isn't good. He relies on just getting a lot of shots off to produce one goal here and there and an assist.
Hmm.
His quality is lacking.
Yeah, he's
And I don't know if it's like maybe confidence. Like he seems to just force things too much at times.
yeah, I think so. He is a team player, but at the same time, he is a bit selfish as well. Um, I don't know. This system just doesn't really fit his profile, unfortunately.
Hmm.
And I feel like the club obviously has to come first before a player, apart from Bruno. Um, and I was telling you I watched the overlap interview with Gary Neville and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And there was one like scary part where we've had so many cuts, like firing a lot of people, everyday workers at our club to save
Sad.
money. And Ratcliffe was basically saying like we could have been out of money by December, like cash. And so I think Garnacho is one of those where I think he has high value. Like he can go to another team and be quite an impact. Um,
Yeah, like I think of a system like Chelsea, I would happily trade him, swap him for Nkunku. Like I think you guys would be happier with Nkunku.
yeah. And I think we could get money out of that deal as well. Like, because I think Garnacho, I mean, Napoli were considering like 70 mil for him. And I think that would have been a steal for us, like easy cash right there. Um, so I think when we offload players during this off season, as much as I like Garnacho, unfortunately, club does come first, and I think he might be one of the players out the door.
Hmm. And I think Newcastle too is a
Yes, I was gonna say
profile
that.
where they could use like that's perfect. And I mean they have a lot of money now with them kind of financially back in line.
Hmm. I
Uh,
will say though, yeah, 3 months finally get on the score sheet.
the track star. Yeah, I'm glad that he scores only once every 3 months because I can't bear to watch that celebration. It has to be top
I love that
10,
Selly. That's such a cold celebration.
not by him. I don't know why when he does it, I'm like, this is cringe. I have to turn the TV off or something.
You need a cold-blooded like
Um,
goal scorer, and that
yeah, to
celebration
do
would be
that.
crazy. Yeah.
It was a good finish. And I think he's been desperate for that goal. It's been so long. And then another player, I thought Bruno clearly best player today, but second best player for me was Delit.
Yes, he's been looking like really good. Um,
Hmm.
Always puts in important blocks, and he's one of those players I really like because he gets the crowd going because he always puts in like one or two challenges where it's like it's a good challenge, fair play, but like at the same time it's like a very hard like can take someone out, but it's clean.
Crunching tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah, today, like you could see his celebration when he had that slide tackle on Boanate,
Hmm.
where it was like a open net kind of. He slid out of nowhere to clear the ball.
Yeah.
Were there any other players that stuck out to you for United, or anything that
What's
stood out?
your, I want to get your thoughts. What's your thought? Because I know Bruno, he's been like
Hmm.
carrying still, even playing deeper in that midfield. But basically, who do you think is like the best midfield once we get like Kabi back as well as Ahmad?
Oh, like the who should play the three in the middle?
Yeah, or
You're
like who
saying?
should play in the deeper with Ugarte, or who should be the inverted tens?
Yeah, I kind of like Bruno playing deeper. That assist he had today was to
Tex.
Hoyland.
Hmm.
He played it from pretty deep. Um, and I don't know. I feel like when you have a player like Bruno, like you want him to get the ball as much as you can, early as you can in the pitch and progress. So I want to see him next to Ugarte, and I think he's got the legs to do that too.
Hmm.
Um, and Ugarte has looked better, especially from a slow start. So Ugarte is he's good in defensive mid, and then I think right above uh, Bruno, I want to see. I don't know, maybe Mount. I'm hoping that Amarin can change him around because he's been speaking very highly of Mount.
Yeah, because he hasn't really even had the chance to see Mount like play in game that much, but like stays talking about Mount.
Yeah, so he definitely sees something in Mount. So I think if he goes back to that 10 role like he did at Chelsea, and he plays like he did first couple years with us, I think he could be there. And then the inverted guys, it has to be Xerxes and Ahmad.
Mhm.
And then I think striker, that's where you guys need to splurge.
I honestly think I think we could attract Victor Osimhen. Honestly, like, I know we're in the shits right now, but like, I think going from Turkey to United is like a crazy upgrade still. I mean, come on
Mhm.
now.
Yeah, I think there's another player right now where Osimhen, like he's gonna be quite expensive. So if you guys are looking for a cheaper alternative, where stocks are pretty low right now, I think it's Boniface from Leverkusen because he's
Mhm.
quality at Leverkusen, but I don't know what's up with him and Xavi Alonso. He kind of just fell out of his favor.
I don't know if they have beef or something, because like the Saudi rumors, and then he was basically gonna get the Saudi move if John Duran didn't happen. So I don't,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know what's happened with Boniface.
And he quietly puts up consistently 20 plus goals, easy.
It's a good point. Yeah, I didn't even think about him.
And then anything from Leicester standpoint that you want to touch on, or you want to move on?
Leicester made history today.
Ooh, history books. What's that?
First team in Premier League history to lose 7 games, 7 losses at home without scoring a goal. 7 games in a row without scoring a goal at home loss. First team in Premier
Ooh,
League.
not good. Not good.
Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like just I don't want to touch too much on Leicester because they were quite poor, but I don't know that sacking on Steve Cooper. I know the reports out there were like they it was kind of disrespectful. Like they didn't even want him at first and stuff. But like 12 games in, you fire him already. Like I don't know if there's really any manager that could have turned this Leicester team around really. And so when you sack a manager, you still gotta pay their severance. So
Hmm.
yeah, Leicester, they're just
I feel like there's few managers who operate pretty well in that type of realm where it's like you need to grind out some ties and wins and stuff like that and stay up. Like the Sean Dyche, the David Moyes and stuff, and
Roy Hodgson.
Roy Hudson. But like I feel like Steve Cooper would have fallen into that camp too, with what he did
Hmm.
in Nottingham. So, um, but yeah, let's move on from that game and go into some other leagues. from today. I think the Serie A and La Liga, with the title race being close. Atalanta today, they lost to Inter 2-0. Had Atalanta won, it would have been a three-way tie at 61 points for first place in Serie A. But I didn't really get to focus too much on this game. I was watching mostly the Barca game. Uh, so what were your thoughts on this one?
I was a little disappointed on with Atalanta. With them being home, I thought they could have really gone for it. I didn't think they had nothing to lose because if they lost, they'd be in the same position, just down to still in third. But I mean, if they won, they would have been, as you mentioned, tied for the first place, just third goal differential wise.
Hmm.
Um, but they played it a little like safe, like they're just playing not to lose,
Mm.
especially like that first half. And then second half, there was a huge delay. Unfortunately, someone in the stands had to get stretchered. Um, so that was like a huge delay. And like right after that incident happened, got cleared off, they resumed play. And I guess Atalanta were like asleep during that whole time because like it was such an easy free header corner. Like no one marked. It was a guy that came on for DeMarco's because of his injury, got
Mm.
the goal. Literally no one marked him. He got a free header, 1-0, and then after that, Atalanta tried to play a bit more. Um, but then Ederson, he got a second yellow for dissent, and then so once Atalanta went a man down, Mar Inter kind of just dominated. And once they got their second goal, it was GG.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like Inter, they controlled the game pretty well, and like they defended really well. Like Atalanta couldn't seem to break them down, like you said. And unfortunately, like when they went 1-0 down, like Ederson got that red card afterwards. Do you think that should have been a red?
Yeah, it's a little harsh. I think if he wasn't
Yeah.
on any bookings like yellow, yeah, because of dissent, but sending someone off on a second yellow for dissent, I feel like it's kind of harsh.
But it was weird because he was like he got a yellow for dissent, and then he started clapping at him, and then he got another yellow for that. But I feel like he should have just like warned him like, "Hey, I just literally gave you a yellow a
Yeah,
second ago."
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah. I thought it was unfair, and so like it just didn't. When Atalanta went down to 10, it just didn't seem like they were going to get a goal and come back.
yeah.
But I was also pretty hyped for Lautaro Martinez grabbing that goal because I don't know, at times I feel like he's disrespected in terms of he's not a big game player and stuff. And which I think is a myth because like for Argentina, he was the one that stepped up consistently and so just scoring today, I was hyped for him in a big game.
I think he was one of those where like when we went over that Ballon d'Or, when Rodri won it, like we were talking about
Mhm.
how La Torre was kind of disrespected, kind of being way down there. I think he was at like the fifth or sixth spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets overlooked a bit.
I think it's also like he doesn't have the kind of the same thing as Vinny, where he has a pretty short fuse and temper and doesn't
Hmm.
have like a good look for fans.
Yeah.
And then going to La Liga, Barca Atletico, touched on Atletico up 2-0 and then bottled 4-2 Barca comeback. What were some of your thoughts here?
Well, I was gonna have Gallagher and Sorloth as my super sub until the bottle job, but very unlike Simeone's team, I think he could look at it. It's hard to look at it hindsight, um, like the commentators mentioned, but uh, I don't think taking out his son was the right substitution. Giuliano
Mhm.
Simeone. I think if anyone, like even Julian Alvarez, I don't think should have been subbed out that early. I think if anyone, possibly Griezmann, who's pretty quiet, but like
Mhm.
Giuliano, he's quite a workhorse. So he would have at least given something defensively to
And he was cooking
see
ball
it
today.
out. Yeah, which is quite surprising because Balde is quite good, and has pace also to match Simeone, but. Yeah, with 2-0 up, Simeone could have done the job defensively too to see it out.
Yeah, no, that was exactly my number one point for this game was Simeone usually makes great subs, always like a super sub contention. Like you said, Gallagher, Sorloth could have been for you, but I think this game he really messed up. Those two players, Alvarez and Simeone, like I get it. Like it seemed like they had but like 2-0 is the most dangerous score line. So those were your two best attackers. Like,
Granted,
and they're
Lewandowski's goal did come out of like nowhere, but like, yeah, to
yeah,
your point, 2-0 is
the most danger. Like you got to keep those guys in, especially in like this isn't a game versus just any team. This is against Barca that you're fighting a title for. Keep your two best players at the time. Keep them in the game till you get the third, and game's over. Good night. And then I think again, season and his career, Simeone's a great manager, but today he messed up, and I think first leg against Real Madrid he messed up, bringing on extra defenders, just trying to just see the game out 2-1, especially when they were on the front foot. And we know Real Madrid's history this season of just letting teams back in. I think those two he kind of messed up. So Atletico fans have to be freaking heartbroken.
yeah, that's a rough week. Yeah, I
Especially
feel
like especially both these games being played um like at the what's to say Riyadh
hmm
Metropolitan, like at home, like that has to suck.
devastating. Yeah,
Heartbreaking losses.
crucial ones too. So
And then two games also we need to highlight each week. Marseille. The Marseille boys, they lost today 3-1 against a hot PSG team that's basically wrapped up that league.
still
Uh
the only undefeated team domestically.
yeah, that's right. Um and I was
Their only
surprised.
their only losses this year have come in the Champions League versus Liverpool and what's their face? Forget the other Champions League game they lost.
I didn't realize they lost one in the kind of the group stages, or not group stages, but um, they beat they beat City, right?
Yes.
This is gonna bug me now. I need to find this. Oh, Atletico 2-1
Ah,
in November. Yep. And then so Marseille boys lost 3-1. PSG rotated some, but Dembele still played, scored a goal. Um, and then Real Betis, they won this morning 3-2. Isco scored a penalty, but him and Anthony looked really good.
it's
He didn't get
hilarious.
on the score sheet, but
They're the Betis IG admin love Anthony. Stay posting about him.
yeah, he's loving life out there in Spain. Uh, but were there any other games that you were able to catch today?
Not catch, but just scoreline a bit worrying for Juve taking another beating. Um,
Yeah, they need to be patient with Thiago Motta, but they said they're giving him till the end of the season.
oh wow. I feel like gotta get at least another year.
Yeah.
But they haven't, I'll be honest, I didn't realize they spent quite a bit of money over the window to accommodate for Mota, so but yeah, still a new manager, definitely need time.
Yeah, someone that's disappointed me at Juve is Koopman Miners from Atalanta. Like he was so good at Atalanta and under Gasparino, but he's been trash for Juve because that was one of my potential transfers of the year.
Yeah, I feel like Juve is just a step up though, like slight level above Atalanta. I don't know. Yeah, but he's been disappointing for their amount of money he went for.
Yeah, and he was that was one of the reasons I thought Atalanta would struggle was because he was such a big piece for them.
Mhm.
Um, but this was also Renato Vega. He's been very good for Juve. The games he's started since transferring over from Chelsea, they hadn't lost a game. until that PSV Champions League debacle. But again, he only played I think like 10 minutes because he got hurt and they ended up losing 3-1. But he started that game. And then today, Atalanta, he started, or not Atalanta,
Fiorentina.
Fiorentina, he started, but um, took a clapping. But just wanted to shout out a Chelsea player who has revitalized at Juve. I like him a lot, but
I don't know
I know
if
he,
revitalized more so than he just never got the opportunities at Chelsea.
yeah, and he's stated he doesn't want to play like in the midfield or left back and stuff. So he's definitely making a name for himself, like in the center back position.
Especially with I do feel for Juve because like Bremer basically being out for the year, that's quite a big loss for
Mm,
them. So, but yeah, he looked pretty good, and it looks like Mata quite likes him.
yep. Uh, and then I guess just touching on the games coming up. Uh,
Ugh, international break. Yeah.
yeah, international break. So UEFA Nations League is coming up. But there's some big ones, big matchups Thursday. Uh, the quarterfinal is Croatia versus France, Denmark, Portugal, Italy, Germany, Netherlands, Spain. Uh, and then a big World Cup qualification game in South America, Brazil, Colombia. So those games are on Thursday.
And then
Friday we
Thursday also U.S. men's national team play Panama in the CONCACAF
ooh.
Nations League A championship semis. That's the easiest of the um I don't want to make it sound like I'm hating or anything, but CONCACAF is definitely the easiest of the international tourneys.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree. Easier than Asian Cup?
Asian Cup kind of sleeper at times, low key, some of the teams there.
Yeah, you do have like South Korea. Uzbekistan low key is kind of rising.
And never get how Australia or New Zealand are counted as the Asian teams. That always
That's true.
bamboozles me.
And you got Japan too, but oh yeah, I guess the Asian Cup is kind of they've got some tough competition. I didn't think about that. Um, and then Friday you have Argentina, Uruguay in the World Cup qualification as well. And then other games in Europe World Cup qualification, you have you have no games to watch. Don't tune in. There isn't really
Maybe
any.
if you want to watch Thomas Tuchel's debut, England take on Albania.
Ooh, that's a good one actually. Good shout. Did you see the squad that he picked? Any surprises of
I
like
actually
who was
haven't seen
selected?
I haven't seen who got selected, but just list when I was watching the Liverpool game, I heard Danberg got his call up.
Yeah, he got his call up. Someone else that surprised me was Kwanzaa getting a call up and also Lewis Skelly getting a call up.
Interesting.
And then in the midfield, someone that really surprised me is old head grandpa Jordan Henderson.
Hmm. Interesting.
Um, but yeah, I think everyone else is kind of it made sense.
Grealish didn't, did he?
Grealish did not, no.
Okay, good.
But Marcus Rashford did after
Hey.
kind of coming to life in Villa. And then in terms of the weekend, there's MLS games, and then on Sunday is the second leg of UEFA Nations League. So you have France, Croatia, Germany, Italy, Portugal, Denmark, Spain, Netherlands. And then World Cup qualifications in Africa. Are there any games that stick out to you there? Or maybe some teams that you plan on watching?
Is that during the weekend as well? Or is
There's
that
some during the week and then weekend too. Yeah, one team that I kind of always keep an eye on is Mali. Uh, that midfield is kind of nice, um, with like Basuma, Sangari, Traore, and Sissoko. So gonna keep an eye on them.
I like I think Ivory Coast. Um well, Diallo's still hurt, but they got Wilfred Singo. They got that center back from Wolves, Egbadu. Um
Mm.
and then they got Diamande from Sporting as well. Uh and they got Indingra, uh Nicholas Pepe. So they got some players.
And then lastly with I think Nigeria, they might just they might be a powerhouse in Africa. Um, Still need to win a trophy though. But they got because did they lose in the finals versus Ivory Coast?
Yeah, and they're big
Yeah.
favorites.
But again, they have Osimhen, Alex Iwobi, Lookman, Chukwueze, Ndidi in the middle. So it's a strong team there. I think,
Mhm.
a lot of people kind of give crap to the African tournament too, but
Jamie Carragher.
yeah, Nigeria could definitely compete with these European teams.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, it's kind of unfair. A lot of players also represent European nations, even though they're like didn't originate, they originated from another country.
Yeah. And then, so that's this weekend. And then, unfortunately, the following weekend, Premier League still is out because of FA Cup weekend. Um, but it's crazy. This FA Cup, man, you got the likes of Fulham v Palace, the quarterfinal stage, Fulham v Palace, Brighton v um, Forest, and then you got Preston versus Villa and Bournemouth versus City. So it's gonna be a sleeper that makes it like a underdog basically that makes it to the final.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, we have to watch the midweek Premier League games
Yeah, the
in
midweek.
April. So,
Yeah, once April comes, those midweeks will be big. But yeah, with that, I'm sure the next episode, I don't know if we'll really do a roundup of the international break. Maybe if there is like a game that's outstanding, but um, maybe that we can take a time to play another game that we kind of enjoy. So uh, we'll look forward to that as time comes. But thank you all for listening. It's been another episode. Peace out.